By now, you've had your wig snatched and your pride handed to you in candlelit public apologies. So what's left? Well, what if I told you that even singing, yes, humming a tune or belting out a ballad, could land you in legal trouble in 18th century France? Welcome to the curious case of regulated melodies and forbidden voices, where laws try to control not just what people did, but what they sounded like. That IT might sound charming at first. The image of bustling market squares filled with street musicians and merry choruses. But behind the scenes, music was a deeply controlled space. Entire laws existed around who could sing, when they could sing, and what they were allowed to sing about. And if you stepped outside the approved parameters, well, you risked anything from fines to being forcibly silenced. Literally, you see, song was power. Lyrics traveled faster than pamphlets. A catchy chorus could mock a bishop, question a noble's lineage, or spread gossip about royal affairs before breakfast was even digested. And so, the French authorities, never known for their love of a good joke at their expense, decided to make singing a legally bounded activity. You could sing this kind of song in this part of town, but only during daylight hours. And only if your lyrics didn't imply that the king had questionable taste in hats. And oh, really? There were actual regulations on the time of day that singing was permitted in certain cities. In towns like Rouen and Dijon, public ordinances banned spontaneous singing or musical declamation after sundown. Why? Ostensibly, it was about preserving peace and dignity. But in reality, these laws were often enforced selectively, mostly when the lyrics veered too close to political satire. Singing a lullaby? Probably fine. Singing a parody of the king's last speech? Prepare to be questioned. One court case from 1767 involved a traveling shoemaker who composed a cheeky tune comparing local tax collectors to snails with powdered wigs. Catchy, right? Too catchy, in fact, because the next morning, half the village was singing it. The authorities arrested the man and charged him under a law forbidding unauthorized lyrical compositions of political nature. His defense? It rhymed. He was fined 12 livres and ordered to cease and silence all melody making for the season. An official musical timeout. Historians still argue whether these singing laws were really about keeping the peace or if they were another layer in a broader censorship regime. Some say the laws reflected anxieties about crowd control and revolutionary messaging. Others believe it was more about class. Only certain voices were allowed to be heard. Either way, the result was the same. Spontaneous joy, when expressed in song, was something to be closely monitored. That IT wasn't just what you sang either, it was who you were. Women, in particular, were often targeted by these laws. In some parishes, unmarried women could be fined for singing ballads in public spaces, especially if the songs referenced romance or independence. The implication? That a woman's voice, raised in melody, could stir up inappropriate feelings, or worse, inspire resistance. A singing woman wasn't just entertainment. She was a threat. There's even record of one barmaid in Marseille who was summoned before a local magistrate for singing tavern ballads of indecent optimism. Her crime? A slightly bawdy sea shanty about a fisherman who preferred oysters to marriage. Her punishment? Public reprimand and a temporary ban from serving wine, lest she inspire further merriment. Because nothing, apparently, was more dangerous than joy mixed with rhythm. Of course, these musical rules didn't apply equally to everyone. The upper classes had their salons, where they could enjoy lute concertos and operatic arias without scrutiny. But for the common folk, music was public, participatory, and often improvised. It was theirs, and that made it risky. So local ordinances began licensing street musicians. You needed permission, even a little badge sometimes, to legally perform in certain towns. No badge, no ballads, and heaven forbid you try to sing a new song. Original compositions, especially those with social commentary, had to be submitted to local censors. Yes, censors for approval. There are letters from aspiring chanson writers begging for their lyrics to be passed by authorities. One poor fellow submitted a song about turnips and was told it lacked metaphorical elegance and might misrepresent agricultural priorities. That's right, His vegetable song was deemed too political, but people are clever. So of course they found workarounds. Satirical lyrics were hidden in religious-sounding tunes. Political messages were coded in love songs. The verse about a greedy goose who feathers too many nests, that was clearly a tax critique. The maiden whose bouquet withers too fast, a veiled jab at royal policies. Audiences knew the codes. Authorities, often less musically inclined, were slower to catch on. And yet, even when caught, many people wore their musical misdemeanors with pride. Being fined for a cheeky song became, in some circles, a badge of honor. Young men boasted about how many times they'd been silenced. Tavern owners would discreetly ask if you wanted the regular music or the forbidden playlist. In a way, the more the laws tried to control singing, the more powerful singing became. It wasn't just music, it was resistance with a melody. Some scholars even argue that these very laws helped fuel revolutionary sentiment. When you muzzle people's art, you don't stop their creativity, you redirect it. By the late 1780s, underground songbooks were circulating widely, filled with biting parodies, coded anthems, and rhyming revolts. And once the revolution broke out, those same songs became rallying cries. The very thing the law had tried to suppress became the voice of change. The next time you hum a tune absent-mindedly in your kitchen or sing in the shower without fear of arrest, be thankful you don't live in a world where your melody could be declared illegal. Unless you're planning a particularly subversive sea shanty. In that case, sing it louder. Coming up next, what happened when people started putting messages in their clothing and how laws try to stop them.